And I'm Luna Reaper.
And this is A Frightful Eve. This evening, we will be reviewing The Blackening, about 7 friends who go away for the weekend, only to find themselves trapped in a cabin with a killer who has a vendetta. They must pit their street smarts and knowledge of horror movies against the murderer to stay alive.
But first, the horror news.
Alice Cooper just released his latest single, I'm Alice, in anticipation of his upcoming album, Road. The album showcases, for the first time on a studio release, Alice's current touring band, produced by longtime collaborator Bob Ezrin. This latest single shows off an old-school Alice sound, promising the album will lend itself to that same style. It comes shortly before Alice takes the stages across the US this fall on the Freaks on Parade tour with Rob Zombie, Ministry, and Filter. You can listen to Road when it drops August 25th.
Slipknot's Sean Clown Cran had to return home from the band's European leg of the tour, mentioning in a statement on Instagram that he must tend to his wife's undisclosed health conditions. An instance of this also occurred a few weeks prior, though he was able to return for Slipknot's headline show at the Download Festival. Clown apologized for his absence from the remaining shows and stated that he looked forward to being there for them, but finished the post saying, quote, "See you soon, and hail Slipknot. Our sincerest well wishes to Clown and his family."
A bizarre and legally ambiguous chapter comes to a close as Gun Interactive have announced that their license for the Friday the 13th game will be up in December, meaning it will no longer be purchasable in the new year, and its servers can go shortly after. Not to fear, although maybe you should. Harry Manfredini, the franchise's most notable composer, announced in an interview earlier this month that a new game is in the works. Although very little information has been revealed, Manfredini teased that it will feature, quote, more realistic looking characters compared to the 2017 predecessor. More on this as news develops.
Fede Alvarez, director behind the Evil Dead 2013 reboot and Don't Breathe, has set his sights on a new venture. What will be the 9th installment of the Alien franchise is set for release on August 16th of next year. Details for the films remain under wraps, but a brief plot summary reveals it will be about a group of young people on a distant world who find themselves in a confrontation with the most terrifying life form in the universe. You can catch all the sci-fi action next summer, 2024.
In local news, our favorite Deadite hunters will be singing and slashing their way across the stage in Red Bank this October. Evil Dead the Musical takes all the elements of the cult classic films The Evil Dead 2, and Army of Darkness, and combines them for one of the craziest, funniest, and bloodiest theatrical experiences of all time. The play has been creating a bloody great experience since its 2003 startup in Toronto, Ontario. It will now thrill New Jersey at the Basie Center's sister location, the Vogel, on October 27th and 28th. Tickets on sale now.
Horror clothing line Fright has teamed up with the Stop the Killer franchise to bring Halloween 2 to your tabletop. Players, or in this case, victims, have to navigate their way through Haddonfield Memorial to escape from Michael Myers through a series of dice rolls and strategic moves. In attempting to create a trailer for the game, production turned into a Halloween mini-movie when Universal greenlit the team's idea. While you wait for the game to hit the shelves, you can check out the short film now.
For more information on these events, check out the links in the description below.
And now for the review of The Blackening. You know, in the dry season of horror, I think a horror comedy was exactly what we needed.
Indeed.
It's been so long since we've been in the theater, and I completely forgot about this trailer until we went to go see it. So I was already going in with a blank slate other than a loose, like,
Concept.
cabin in the wood comedy.
Yeah. Well, it was very under wraps. Like, even, you know, day of, there was only a few people in the theater, you know, and I think the advertising of it was not really as displayed, maybe just because of the subject matter, you know? I think that, I don't know, I guess on a commercial standard, on the trailer alone, I also, like, even after watching the trailer, didn't really know what to expect, so I could kind of see where that might be misconstrued by just a minute snippet of it.
Yes, but you also notably checked the website of where we bought our movie tickets from, and all those seats were sold.
Oh yeah, the seats were eaten up, technically. I mean, I don't know, you know, whether or not that was a glitch in the system or what, but it did seem strange to me that, like, the theater was sold out, presumably, but there was, like, us and 2 other people.
So I don't know if it's people buying in support even on a day that they can't make it to the movie theater, or if it's people doing a poor job of making sure the movie theater's empty and spending their money.
Somehow, some way. I feel like it couldn't have been that well known for people to be like, no.
I would certainly hope not, but this is Central Jersey.
That is fair.
But I thought it was very, very funny. I didn't expect to laugh at it as much as I did, just because I think a lot of these movies can fall dry, but if everyone in this cast is fairly successful comedians. Turns out, when looking at everyone's background, so I think the comedic timing was there.
Yeah. Well, that's, I mean, one of the things that I brought up to you, and I was thinking about it since we saw it in the theater, you know, in the way that it's horror commentary and horror comedy, you know, like it's blending those things. It's kind of poking fun at itself and the tropes and the stereotypes that have come with the genre over the decades. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I feel like there's good ways of managing that with writing and mixing the horror backdrop for the comedy in well, like making a good mix of the two. Whereas, like, you know, Bodies, Bodies, Bodies is one that I think still to this day is probably our lowest rating. And
which is a very hot take. A lot of people received it well.
Yeah. But even, you know, it's that also seems strange to me in and of itself, but
I know.
It like, to me it felt like a Gen X take on Gen Z, you know?
Yes.
And so the comedy of that falls so flat because the punchlines are so poorly written. You know, if it was Gen Z parodying Gen Z,
it would have been so much better.
It probably would have been so much better.
Yeah, it would have been so much better. But at least these are Black creators making content that every Black person can laugh at the tropes that they've seen in horror for forever.
Right.
And make a really good horror comedy out of it.
Exactly, yeah. And I mean, that's the great thing, too. I think that the writers for this also had a deep appreciation for the genre. And, you know, obviously can still poke fun at it and still understand that there's, you know, there's been a lot of work that needed to be done to the genre over the years, as with any form of entertainment, really.
Yeah.
But, you know, they took it with that and still managed to put in so much of... I said it kind of reminded me a little bit of, like, Scream in the sense that it constantly referenced back to all the different horror films that the characters liked. You know, they referenced Texas Chainsaw.
Yeah.
I mean, like, just the plot lines, too. And the fact that it's a Lionsgate movie made a lot more sense then, because I believe they are the same people responsible for Saw.
Okay.
And of course you have the I want to play a game, you got the TV running with the serial killer behind it.
Yes.
You know, those elements are those definitely transfer from those films.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, like in that regard, I love that whole concept. Like I felt like each of the characters had their own personal backstory, which is something that often gets overlooked in the Cabin in the Woods kind of horror.
Yeah.
And you know, again, just going back to the writing of like how well developed those characters were and how they interacted with one another, where the horror element of it all was just the backdrop for these characters to kind of dance upon, you know, like to kind of to play their own roles on top of. That was just like the scene setter, because even when they finally get the killer, they're like talking over his dead body about all their own situation going on.
Yes, they are very complex, especially for, you know, it was their 10-year reunion since college. I feel like even that still is just like, okay, jock, you know, slut, virgin, jester, what have you.
Yeah,
and it's just, at least everyone still had a personality while being like, okay, yes, this character is this one, this
These
one,
are still
this one,
the
that other
tropes.
group.
Yeah, right.
It was very good.
Oh, I did actually like the fact that even though, you know, again, the plot of it seems like the horror aspect of it is, again, just the backdrop for these characters. A lot of it obviously parodying Saw and Scream, it seemed like. That was a lot of like the elements kind of used in like the fact that there's two killers. And the plot twist at the end and all these elements going into it. But even with it sort of being the backdrop for the whole setting the scene, I really dug like the killer and like the way that the design of it, you know? And the fact that it was what were they? They were paid hitmen essentially.
Yep.
Because of Clifton. That was
Yep. Clifton.
Another, you know, like the same thing where there's a lot of horror references. In general, there's a lot of cultural references, which has that sort of same Scream element to it, where, you know, they're doing the trivia game, and it's all things that, you know, they're either familiar with or whatever the case may be. I like I like that Clifton's modeled after Steve Urkel. Very clearly.
Oh, that was, I mean, I hope that's intentions, or I hope I didn't reference that wrong, but I thought it was great. The moment he started talking, I was like, wow, this is so exaggerated from everybody else.
Right.
Automatically you are just like, why is this guy here? So it's not, obviously it's not too far from that this was a surprise that, spoilers, Clifton organized all this.
Yeah.
Because he was betrayed and embarrassed back in high school. Or, college.
Even as entertaining as that was, it was, again, like one of those situations where, like, every step of the way you already kind of knew what was coming.
Yeah. Because the creepy guy in the mini-mart-esque store was too obvious.
Yeah.
Where I was even surprised that we saw that character in the first place after he was shot as a bit of a pawn. Or, shot with the arrow.
Who was shot with the...
Or no, his head was bashed in by what's-her-face.
Oh, right, yeah.
By Lisa, I think.
Allison.
Allison, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, she bludgeons him to death. But there was
awesome.
There was the two killers, and the one gets bludgeoned to death with the pillar.
Yeah.
And what was the other one? The other one got...
Clifton got shot and then tossed down the well.
No. I meant the other killer. The other masked killer. Because there was two masked killers and then Clifton.
I don't remember.
I think he was the one that he was chasing them out in the woods. I think King like came down on him from the trees and like did some sort of maneuver.
Shanika finish it up?
No, Shanika was in the lake.
Okay.
It was
I thought she was coming back. Oh no, it was Allison.
No,
no, Allison killed the one by the lake because she was tripping on Adderall, and then she went out and killed.
The one that was tripping on Adderall was Lisa.
Yes, that's what no.
Yes.
No, Allison.
This episode's going great, guys.
Well, you know.
Okay, where was I going? Oh yeah. So I loved Clifton's character, and it was, you know, it's apparent that he was the outlier of the group / could be the killer, because it was too obvious for the Mini Mart brothers to be the true murderers, even though it was fantastic to watch Allison on substances.
On substances.
That they gave her the strength to kill pawn number 1.
Right,
and then Lisa really, you know, letting it out, bashing pawn number 2's
I like
head
that.
in.
What did she say about Clue? She said, it was Dwayne said something about like, what do you like, General Custard or something like that, or what's the character in the
Colonel Mustard?
Colonel Mustard. That's what it was.
Custard.
General Custard.
General Custard was a real person in history.
Right. Okay. Maybe that's why I got that mixed up. But yeah, no. Those were probably the most brutal deaths I think in the entire movie, because nobody really dies, right? Except for aside from the killers
And the 2 friends?
Yeah, just the 2 friends.
Just 2 friends.
Just you know what I mean.
Wow.
But you know, because they're the ones that start the movie.
Yes.
It's not like, you know, you don't really get a sense for who they are. Well, except for who was it? Morgan was the one that was still alive by the time they got to the cabin, and she was on the TV screen. They tried to save her with the game.
They did their best.
I do like the fact, like, she actually escapes and, you know, beats the crap out of the killer before she, you know, gets it. But
yeah.
So at least they gave her a little bit more screen time. She, you know, tries to survive. But yeah, you know, for again, comedy being the central focus, much like Renfield, the gore is still pretty good for that.
Yeah.
You know, they still do a pretty decent job at, I mean, I think The Pillar was probably the best, because you get brain bits, you get blood, you get everything.
Yep. All up in her hair.
Yeah, I like Namdi's just like, you got a little
something. Very supportive.
Very supportive.
Very
well,
supportive, you know.
Yeah.
Was not the move Lisa, in my personal opinion, but you know.
Well,
To be determined.
he redeems himself, kind of.
After cheating a couple times.
Right. Well, I mean, he seems like, I think after witnessing her bludgeon a man to death, he's kind of a changed man. Because he kind of, at that point is when he's starting to be like, I swear I'll be faithful. Like, you know, you know, we like to believe the best.
I'm gonna let my face do what it needs to do.
Right. But yeah, I mean, all in all, with everything said and done, you know, the fact that it survives solely on the fact that it is comedy and poking fun at the genre and poking fun at a lot of cultural references in and of itself, and it's technically a holiday film. It exists in the holiday film horror genre. But I mean, successfully using that as the backdrop, where it doesn't feel like, even though it's, you know, utilizing all the elements and parodying these movies, it doesn't feel lost in any sense of that. You still feel like you're watching a horror comedy. It's not one or the other.
Got it, yeah. It hasn't completely abandoned the horror or completely abandoned the comedy.
Right.
Got it.
And it's very entertaining to watch the fact that, you know, of them kind of in between all of this carnage going on, kind of losing sight of the fact that there's active killers on the hunt, and they start just bickering with each other and stuff.
The power of friendship. They're trying to get through their stuff after 10 years. That's a beautiful thing.
Right.
KK.
That's what this movie's about.
Luna.
Friendship.
KK and Luna Reaper.
What, Bartholomew?
What is the final verdict?
The Blackening takes huge risks in its controversial themes and commentary, and it executes them with excellent timing. The out-of-pocket humor, coupled with the standard tropes of a typical slasher, makes for a perfect combo to allow these characters' personalities to shine through.
Though the plot is a little loosely held together, as many Cabin in the Woods type horror is, and largely takes influence from the themes of Scream and Saw, it was clearly meant to act more as a backdrop to the comedy, poking fun at the stereotypes often found in the horror genre. And for that, we give this film an 8 out of 10.
That's our show. Thanks for tuning in.
And until next time, Ghosts and Ghouls, have a frightful eve.